What's up everybody, SuperDukes fan here for another car review. This is of course the 2017 Nissan Pathfinder Platinum. Huge thanks to Nissan for providing me with this very nice Pathfinder to review for you guys today. So about the 2017 Pathfinder, well, I really like some of the adjustments they've made to it here to make it look a little more aggressive for 2017, including that more aggressive front bumper and rear bumper, and overall it just looks a little more off-roady than the Pathfinders of the past. And now it's, long gone from its truck basis that it used to have many years ago, and so now it's a very refined crossover now that seats 7, and it actually looks pretty good, I gotta say too. You have these LED headlights now, which look pretty sharp, and in the back there you have some nice looking taillights, and overall it's a fairly sleek looking design, nothing super bold, but with all the bold designs from Lexus and things like that these days, it's nice to have something that's a little more subdued, but still looks attractive. As for the interior of the 2017 Nissan Pathfinder, well, it's mostly pretty good. So anyway, first things first, sitting down in these seats, these are some really nice and soft, comfortable seats. They feel like your favorite leather couch kind of deal. It's nice and soft, just really comfy seats. I mean, obviously this is an SUV, so you're not going to have really aggressive bolstering or anything like that, but it's sufficient, and overall it's just a really nice seat to sit in. I like them a lot. Next, the steering wheel in the Nissan Pathfinder, which I also really like the design of. It has a little bit of concavity and a little bit more depth to it than some other steering wheels out there, and it has a pretty good 9-3 grip here as well. A nice little 10-2 notches, just nicely leather wrapped, a few buttons, but not a sea of buttons or anything, which is also refreshing. And so overall, just a really nice steering wheel. Gauges in the Pathfinder are also pretty good. Now, I mean, it's your standard gauges for the most part, as far as they stick to pretty traditional fonts and layouts here. It's nothing radical really, just your 2 analog gauges there, and then you have a nice little digital portion like you see in many other vehicles these days. The unique thing about this one though is that center screen is 3-dimensional. It's kind of tilted backwards, and so it gives you a very 3-dimensional view, and it's kind of different. I really like the way it looks. It's I don't know if it's any better or worse than a standard screen there, but I think it actually looks pretty cool. It helps to differentiate this a little bit more from other gauge clusters out there. And so overall, they're actually pretty interesting gauges because of it. Coming over to the center of the dashboard here, it's pretty good. So right up top here, you have this nice large touchscreen display. I'm glad that it is touchscreen. You still do have this little wheel with nice metal finishes on it here that you can use to navigate as well, but it is touchscreen, so putting in addresses and things like that is all very easy and straightforward, thankfully, so I'm glad they've included that. Unfortunately, I don't believe this has Apple Carplay or Android Auto integrated into it. I know that some Nissans, I think, are getting that for 2018, so maybe that is something that will come soon. But I don't see it present on this unit here. But everything else though is very nice. Like the audio menus and stuff are nice crisp graphics. Very simple though, not overly complicated, very easy to use. Thankfully, we still do have traditional controls as well. So you come down, you have your volume and tune controls, which are also nice and have a little cool finish to them. Unfortunately though, they do feel plasticky, and you can see they kind of wobble a little bit and feel a little loose. So although they look nice, the quality behind that doesn't really feel very good. And so that's a little bit unfortunate, but at least they are nice to look at. Another thing nice to look at is this trim that I believe isn't real wood. It looks fairly convincing, but I believe it is actually not real wood. So it would be nice to have some real wood in here, but it does look good nonetheless. But yeah, all the other controls and everything, though, very straightforward, and again, nicely uncluttered for the most part. Very easy to figure out, and so overall, really nicely done center stack here. Otherwise though, you just have your heated and cooled seat controls down here next to your shifter. You have your 4-wheel drive controls here as well. But a couple other quick little mentions about the interior material quality here. Like the shifter, for example, has a very cheap feeling and sounding button, nitpicking here, but also like there's very hard plastic around the starter button here, which is an area you will come in contact with. So I could see if it was in more obscure areas of the vehicle to have the hard plastic, but right here would be nice if it was padded a little bit. But otherwise though, there is nice padding elsewhere. This door panel here is a little bit softer, very nice padding here for your elbows, and all the other main touch points all feel very good. So, but like I said, mostly a pretty good interior, but not perfect. As far as storage space goes in the Pathfinder, it's pretty good. It's pretty impressive in a lot of ways. So anyway, coming over to the door first, you have 2 bottle holders there, which is a nice large size. And then coming over to the center here, you have a pretty large deep cubby here that has 2 power outlets. Unfortunately, there's no USB jack or anything exposed up front here. You have a little map pocket here on the right-hand side of the driver here next to the transmission tunnel. And then you have 2 cup holders here front and center. And then you have the center armrest armrest, which is very nicely padded and has two levels to it. You have the upper level, which is plenty roomy to fit, most smartphones, wallets, things like that all fit up there very easily, and it's nice to have that right there. And then you have this deeper portion here, which has an additional little tray. You also will find two USB jacks and an auxiliary jack and a video in jack there, as well as an SD slot there for your map and another power outlet. So good to have those in there, but I do wish there was a USB jack up front there as well. But anyway, it's a good size space in there. Again, not the largest in its class. There are some vehicles out there in the crossover segment that have a lot more storage space, but I mean, this should be plenty for most people, and so overall pretty good. Back seat space in the Pathfinder. Now, of course, this seat's 7, so it's just got a massive amount of room back there as well. So, first, starting off with that second row there, you have a good amount of room. Those seats do slide forwards and backwards, and in both positions, they're livable for someone that's my size, 5'9". So, but they have plenty of room there, as you can see, for my knees. And then, you have an abundance of storage spaces there as well as, 2 bottle holders in each of the doors. And then they also have their own auto climate controls here for the second row with vents, and you also have a normal plug there to power normal electronics as well. So cool to have all that stuff in there. And and then going back to the third row is a little tricky to access there. There's a nice convenient lever there, but it just automatically folds up the seat bottom as well, so you can't really get anyone in and out of there with someone seated in that second row, so they have to get out and then hop back there. But it is nice because you do have the 7 seats as opposed to 6, but just a little more complicated there without having a middle pass through. But works very well, and they do claim that you can also keep like a child seat latched back there, and it will still be able to move that seat forwards and backwards to get people into that third row, even with a child seat in place, which is very handy feature as well. But going back to that third row now, and now with the second row all the way back, you can just barely fit someone 5'9" back there. But really, I mean, my knees are really digging into the back of the seat back there. So I would say, for children and things like that or smaller adults, that third row is usable. But for full-size adults, it's definitely tough in a pinch. Now, if you are willing to sacrifice second row leg room, you can move those second row seats up, and then you have plenty of room there in the third row. So it just depends on what your needs are, but you should still be able to fit 7 adults in here if you finagle it right. And so nice there. And again, back there in that third row, it's still not an uncomfortable place to be. You have nicely soft leather seats, you have speakers, you have multiple cup holders back there as well for those occupants. And so overall, just a very nice thing to haul all 7 people in comfort and do it in a very nice fashion. Now, as far as trunk space here in the Pathfinder, it's pretty good. Now, first off, the tailgate is motorized and goes up and down, with the press of a button. It also does have the kick feature there to open that, but it's a hit or miss kind of thing. It doesn't work a lot of the times. It does work every once in a while, but not very dependable. But, you have a button on the key. You have also an exterior button you can press, so as long as your hands aren't full, shouldn't be too big of an issue there. But it would be nice if that, feature worked consistently. But anyway, once that's opened up there, you have a good amount of space even with the third row up. And the clever thing is there's also a tray underneath of the floor there, and so you can lift that up and fit a good amount of things there out of view as well, which is nice to kind of have that little extra compartment. You do also have the Bose subwoofer or wave system that they kind of have in there to help, and they say that provides deeper bass here for this Bose sound system that you have in here with 13 speakers. So that's nice to have, although that does compromise a little bit of that space, but I think it's a worthy trade-off. Anyway, though, it's very easy to fold that third row down. Just, pull a few latches there and boom, you have it laying flat, and you have way more space if you don't need that third row. And the second row also folds flat as well with just a pull of a lever. And so you can really fit a massive amount of stuff in here, if you don't need either of those rows. So a very functional and very versatile space there that should accommodate just about anything you can imagine. All right, so start up and go for a drive. Nissans here all have a very nice little key fob that you can just leave in your pocket because it's keyless entry with buttons there on the door handles and push button start. So you just leave the key in your pocket, hit the engine start button, and it starts right up. All right, so setting off in the 2017 Nissan Pathfinder Platinum. So first thing you notice is it's a very nice, high sitting position, typical of all crossovers these days. And but it rides really smoothly, and it's nice and soft. Like I said, in combination with these nice soft seats, the ride feels pretty soft as well so far. But other things to note here: the visibility is actually pretty good here in the Pathfinder as well. You have a very large windshield. The hood drops down nicely, so you can see forward very well. View out of the sides is pretty good here. You do have a B-pillar there, but you have blind spot monitoring, and even with the B-pillar, you can see around it very easily into the rear windows there, so not an issue there. And view out of the back is pretty good as well, as long as you don't have that third row rear headrests up. With those up, it's a little bit blocked, but still not too bad. One thing I will say though is that this A-pillar and mirror area over here on the driver's side is a little chunky and a little high, so that it makes it so that you have a little more obstruction than you would like there in that area. But still not a big deal. But if you are navigating in tight spaces and happen to be looking in that direction, you kind of would wish that there was a little less mass there. But overall, still not a big deal. One thing you might be able to notice though right off the bat here, there's a little squeak rattle type thing over by the passenger side window there, and I'm not sure what that is, but as the whole time I've been driving this car so far, it's had that sound, and I'm not sure quite why, but a little bit annoying. Alright, so this is an SUV after all, but let's turn down on this back road here and see how it does. So as you might be able to hear there, we have a CVT doing the shifting here, which is why it kind of has some abnormal, it doesn't have typical shifting patterns, but CVTs have been around for a while and they work. But as far as that power goes, we have a revised 3.5 liter V6 under the hood there that now gets direct injection for 2017, and so it also gets a little increase in power, 24 more horsepower for a grand total of 284, and then it also has a 19 more pound-feet of torque for a grand total of 259 pound-feet. So it's plenty that, it doesn't feel sporty or anything, but it's enough, for commuting and merging onto the highway and things like that. It's not going to really blow you away or impress you really, but like I said, it's sufficient, and it's right in line with most of the competition out there, so it's not like it's any slower than the rest. There is no actual 0 to 60 time that I could find listed for the Pathfinder here, but again, most people looking for these probably don't consider that metric, and so yeah, but now we're on a main road here. It's a very comfortable thing to just cruise down the road in here. There really isn't any road noise, no wind noise. It's very refined in here, and actually kind of reminds me of some Infinitis that I've driven. And so you can definitely feel a little bit of that influence in the cabin here as well. But overall, it feels very nice, and that's good because this being the Platinum one is the top of the line one. That goes for mid 40,000s, and so at that price, you want to have something that feels nice and luxurious and refined, and this does that very well. Alright, now I know that most people aren't going to be going around tight back roads in their Pathfinders, but just to see how the handling is here of these, let's take it around a few sharp corners. And so it definitely has some lean and plow to it. These things obviously aren't very light. These weigh around 4,600 pounds, but for what it is, it handles itself pretty well here. There isn't too much roll. It leans a little bit and then just stays steady at that, angle, I guess, and does a pretty good job. Again, it's no sports car or sports sedan by any means, but it's fine. It doesn't feel sloppy really or anything like that. Just your typical soft SUV ride. Some things that do feel very nice are the brakes. You have a nice bite of the brake pedal right at the top whenever you hit it there, and it's got a very nice feel to it as well. And steering also has a nice weight to it. It has a pretty good feeling too. You can actually kind of feel what's going on with the front wheels a little bit better than some of the other typical crossover fare, and so it actually is it's just the right amount of steering weight and feel for a crossover like this. I think they did a really good job with that. Throttle response is also pretty good. Obviously a little bit delayed there, just because of the CVT and the bit of a disconnect you sometimes feel, but overall the throttle response is pretty good as well. But yeah, as far as handling goes, I would say, I haven't driven too many of its competitors here, but I will say that, the Ford Explorer, which is like 4,900 pounds, certainly didn't handle as well as this, and that's predictable because it's, about 300 pounds heavier. And I will say the GMC Acadia that I reviewed last year, that handled a good amount better, as far as crossovers go, and that's also much lighter at right around 4,000 pounds, thanks to the huge weight loss that GM put all their vehicles on. So, so that's definitely the the better handler of the bunch here, but you know, I think that this certainly has a very nice soft ride, and so again, I don't think handling is high on anyone's priority list when shopping for crossovers. But one thing that crossover buyers actually are interested in, fuel economy, in this vehicle is also improved here, obviously because of the refinements of the engine for 2017. It's now rated at 19 in the city, 26 on the highway for a combined average of 21. Now, thanks to Nissan, I'm going to have this vehicle for an entire week, so I'll be observing my fuel economy here in the real world and seeing how it performs. But yeah, so I'm going to drive around all week, and I'll come back and give you my final thoughts. Alright, so I've been driving the Pathfinder here for a week now, and it's still a pretty nice thing to drive. So it's not perfect, but first let's get to that fuel economy. So in my real world driving here, I got 17.5 miles per gallon, and that's over 105 miles or so of driving. And so that's pretty good. It's 1.5 mpg lower than the city estimate. I did do primarily city driving, but there was a little bit of highway and more relaxed driving mixed in there. So a little lower than I was expecting to see, but still compared to other competitors, I think it's actually pretty good. I think I remember the Ford Explorer that I reviewed. That thing I think got like 14 or 15 miles to the gallon. So I mean, for what this is, and this is still fairly heavy as well, it did a really good job, I think, all things considered. So that's pretty good. And other good things about the Pathfinder here in the week of driving it here is first, the headlights at night are really good. I'm not sure, I mean, obviously they've upgraded the headlights here for the 2017 revisions, but they're just really crisp and give you a really good view of the road ahead. And so I like the headlights. They're really good. The stereo system's also very good. This Bose system, it's not mind-blowing or anything, but it's better than your run-of-the-mill stereo, and a nice little improvement there as well. Another thing that worked better than expected, though, were these heated and cooled seats. So, since this is May, the seats we actually just use mostly with the cooling function. Both me and my wife were really impressed with how well they did, because other cars' cooled seats are hit or miss. My Mustang, for example, the bottom gets really cold, but the top, the seat back, doesn't actually really cool at all. This, both the seat bottom and the seat back got nice and cool, and so they did a pretty good job here with the cold seats in the Pathfinder. And that's something, like I said, that isn't common with cold seats. A lot of them don't really work as well as you'd think. And so I'm really impressed with that as well. Now for the not so great things about the Pathfinder here in the week that I drove it. The first is the seatbelt every single time catches whenever you go to release it. And it's not just like a little catch, it's like you gotta really tug on it. And maybe it's just because of my body type or the position my seat's in, I don't know. But every time I try to get out of the seatbelt, I had to give it like 2 or 3 extra tugs in order to actually get it to disengage here. So just a little minor annoyance there. Another thing that was a minor annoyance is this CVT transmission. With a lot of the competitors still sticking with a normal traditional automatic, it'd be nice to see a normal automatic in this as well, because these CVTs, I mean, if you get used to it, it's fine. Whenever you're just putting around town, you don't really feel much. Whenever you really are trying to stomp on it and merge and stuff, it just feels a little more sluggish than you'd like. Otherwise, though, it does have good power. It's competitive with the rest of the segment out there. I did actually manage to find a 0 to 60 time for this, for those that were curious earlier, and it is in the mid 7-second range. 7.3 to 7.5 is what I kind of saw. So again, it's just to help quantify the speed of this thing. It's not bad. In the crossover world, it's perfectly acceptable, but nothing that's going to excite you or anything like that. The more that I drove this vehicle around corners, though, in the week that I had it here, the less impressed I was with the handling. Now, I mean, obviously, this is a crossover. It's not supposed to go around corners super sharply. But it was a little more wallowy than I would like. And even, like I said, compared with some of the other crossovers, this is just set up to be a little bit softer. I think out of all the crossovers that I've reviewed, it's probably one of the softest and most comfortable ones. Has the smoothest ride of the bunch. But I will certainly say that I enjoy going around corners in the GMC Acadia better, but mainly for that reason. That is why I actually prefer the Acadia out of the few SUVs that I have driven the crossovers here with 3 rows. The Acadia felt a little more athletic, a little more livable, I guess you could say, for someone that does enjoy enthusiast type of vehicles and sporty driving charging every once in a while. The Acadia just felt a little less sluggish, a little sharper, more lightweight, of course. And so that was the one that I think I would prefer to drive personally myself. Another nice thing that the Acadia and both the Explorer have is Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is something this does not have. And these days, that's a really nice feature. I've really gotten used to it with a lot of the vehicles that I've reviewed, and it's a really nice thing to have, especially on road trips. You know, whenever you're driving for hours on end, you know, to be able to voice text a lot easier and things like that, and safer. I think it really makes the, you know, CarPlay and Android Auto experience, that really helps whenever you're driving a lot. And so I think that, you know, this not having that, I mean, this infotainment system's fine, but I really wish Nissan would join in with the rest and you know, include Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. I think that'd be a great improvement for the infotainment. But one advantage that Nissan does have over the competitors like the Acadia and the Explorer is that this, you can get pretty nicely equipped for a lot less money. Those other two and a lot of the other competitors in this field really balloon in price quickly if you want a lot of the higher end features. For example, like this has the full safety suite with the autonomous braking, blind spot monitoring, lane keep assist, all that kind of stuff is in this one, and this is the Platinum one, but you don't even need to go to the Platinum to get all that kind of stuff. You still have a lot of goodies in even the lower trim levels, and even this one, as tested, is $44,685. So I mean, not, you know, chump change, but then again, like I said, you know, the Acadia that I drove was the Denali fully loaded. That was like 52 grand. The Explorer was, I think, almost 60 grand. And so, you know, I mean, there are some other cheaper alternatives like the Highlander and stuff that I haven't even driven, so I can't really comment on those. But yeah, so for the price this is, I think that it's a very compelling package here, you know, and really does nicely undercut some of the rest, you know, whenever you consider trim versus trim and package versus package. So overall, I think it's, like I said, a really well done job here by Nissan. Huge thanks to Nissan once again for providing me with this to review for you guys today. Let me know your thoughts on the Pathfinder in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care.